it is so expensive to make stuff in part because in like a AAA space in particular, the graphical fidelity aspect of things, like the reality of like nailing that level of precision, graphically, and the engineering required to be able to manage all that and optimization required, all that stuff is so heavy that you've been playing for marginal gains now in that space for like 10 years, right? And we're really at a point where like you got ray tracing. I don't know what you guys want, but like everything's reflected on everything. It all looks real. It's just kind of like you can't go further than that
You got hair
anymore.
physics. Is it fun?
Is it more fun?
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 542 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm a miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artiste.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is still October 2nd, 2025. So this is the same day as we recorded the previous episode. Before we go any further, there's going to be profanity in this show, so be ready for that.
How much that threw you off? You're like, is it still going?
Same day.
Same day. It's weirding me out. It's because I'm getting my nose broken, so, deal with it.
Deal with it.
Okay.
If you want to learn more about that, just go back and watch the previous episode.
Yeah.
We'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep the podcast going. Or another way to support the podcast, go to YouTube, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
I feel like you've waited your whole life to say that. That's great.
Yeah, that was pent up. That one's pent up for 541
Like and subscribe.
Yes. So do that. We got to pump those numbers up. Frankly, we got rookie numbers on this thing. All right. So since we're just picking up where we left off. Literally nothing has happened since we recorded the last episode, and probably nothing has happened in the world, in between those two episodes.
Definitely not.
Really, it's a pretty calm period of history right now.
Yep.
And I feel like I can confidently say,
on?
in any given 1 week, not much is really going on.
No.
So
It's nice to have so much tranquility,
yeah, I love living in precedented times.
Yeah. Just great.
Very hopeful for the future. Everything's looking up. Let's get into some questions. These questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bscotch.net. Highest upvoted question comes from Tim Conceivable, who says, after spending 4+ years on Crashlands 2, you guys have been talking about changing up your game dev strategy a little bit, like with How Many Dudes. Do you watch or follow other indie developers online for advice or guidance that is informing this pivot, or is it mostly just a reaction to how your games have performed? If there are any specific devs you follow, I would be interested to know.
I think it's the sort of thing where it starts with the reaction to a thing, and then, for me at least, that transfers into the search part. So it's like, the reaction was, wow, this game took a fucking long time to make.
What if it didn't?
What if it didn't? And then being like, who else? Is anybody talking about this? And then, fighting some people. So I really like Jonas Tyroller's channel on YouTube. He's got great, like just high-level design videos and stuff that are really nicely put together. But then recently he's been doing these really long-form interviews, which I brought him up in a couple different episodes now, which we've used to inform some of our stuff. And there's great. I mean, they just had an interview with Philomena Schwab from Stray Fawn, who did like Nimbatus and The Wandering Village and Dungeon Crawler. And that was fascinating because it's kind of the same pivot in a weird way. They're doing the same thing where they're making a few smaller titles and starting a publishing wing. So I don't know. It's like, it feels like whatever's happening right now, everyone's like, we need to make everybody seems like they're in the boat of like, we need to make smaller stuff because the world's a scary place and everyone's terrified.
And all the money's gone. And like
all the money's gone. Yeah.
All the money's gone. And I think everybody is aware of the same thing that we are, which is not only the money now is gone, but there's nothing visible on the horizon for what comes next. And so everybody is trying to figure out what seems like the least dangerous way to stay afloat until something new comes up over the horizon, right? Mm-hmm. And so the only, like, the obvious thing is to make stuff more cheaply. That's the one thing you can try to do. And we've seen in the past handful of years that, which we talked about a few episodes ago, right? That small games on Steam it's suddenly become possible for those games to be successful. Mm-hmm. Earlier days of Steam, that was not true. The expectations are really different. Everything was assumed to be like huge, masterpiece of a thing from a
you
giant
just
studio.
you don't see the same like mobile port or whatever the fuck. Like you actually just almost don't see that now on Steam. Like,
like back when we watched Crashlands, right? And like all the commentary was like, "Oh, it's just a mobile port."
I feel like Vampire Survivors kind of broke the seal.
Yeah, it was heading that way, and then something about that one where it was like it's just like janky looking pixel art, and everyone's like, "This is fucking great," and then suddenly everyone's like, "I guess."
It's like at some point, people just collectively decided, you know what? What if we did just cared about gameplay?
Yeah, what if we liked video games?
Yeah.
What if we just cared that the game is fun, and then that's how we judged it? Instead of how many hours of voice acting does it have, or how many cutscenes does it have, or how big is the map?
A big part of it does have to do with more broadly the industry trend, which is like it is so expensive to make stuff in part because in like a AAA space in particular, the graphical fidelity aspect of things, like the reality of like nailing that level of precision, graphically, and the engineering required to be able to manage all that and optimization required, all that stuff is so heavy that you've been playing for marginal gains now in that space for like 10 years, right? And we're really at a point where like you got ray tracing. I don't know what you guys want, but like everything's reflected on everything. It all looks real. It's just kind of like you can't go further than that.
You got hair physics. Is it fun?
Is it more fun? Yeah. And so it's like I think it's one of those things where then the industry has to reorient no longer around just like pushing the fidelity aspect, right? Because it's pushed all the way, but then around style and around other aspects. And I think that opens the space for more player focus on just like stuff that's cool and fun, and it doesn't have to be huge.
I also think there's a differentiator here, which is like, and this is something that I feel personally, which is as indies, we have spent basically our entire game dev career trying to constantly increase the quality of our games, like more polish, better visual fidelity, better like effects and shaders and cool.
It's more like systemically work and more aspects of like what a game could possibly be being pulled in, right? Like keeping the story stuff in, getting like cutscenes, like
But from a business perspective, you want to think about the concept of like a competitive advantage. Like, what can you do that other companies can't do? Like the further we push the quality of our games, the more likely we are to be compared to games that far outpace our ability to produce that level of quality. Like if we get into like the AAA space where we're making stuff in Unreal Engine, and like trying to like really go for that super high level of graphical fidelity, it's gonna be very expensive for us and it's gonna take a lot of time. And then we're gonna suddenly be getting compared to Assassin's Creed and shit like that, right? Because it's
or even a small indie like Expedition 33, right?
Small indie with just like 100-something people, and so what can you do as an indie that AAA studios can't do? Is you can make small, fun games quickly. They can't do it.
Yeah, they literally can't.
Their infrastructure is set up in a way where they can only do big projects with large numbers of people. They have to go through lots of stages of approval, and they have to have a really high ROI. As like they got to bring in like hundreds of millions of dollars.
And and not just a high ROI because it's relative, right? But also just a high absolute amount of dollar figure because they could
investing $200 million, and then they got to bring in $200 million plus more to cover marketing plus, which is those are just insane numbers compared to anything we've ever experienced, right? But we don't need those types of numbers, and like we don't need to spend 5 years on a game like we did, but we actually don't need to, because like Quadrupus Rampage 3 months, Talfight 2 3 months, Flop Rocket 2 weeks. Like in the past we have made much smaller games super fast, and I think this pivot is basically saying like we need to play to our strengths and compete on those.
I was basically saying let's take a lot of the but like the DevOps approach, the infrastructural improvements that we've gotten over the last 10 years from pushing for higher and higher quality, right? We can now localize the game in like 12 different languages. That's fine. We can put the game on everything, because we know how to do controller support. We have all these different tools we built to make even moving the art around.
I put up six deployments of how many dudes yesterday.
Yeah. Just casually, you know what I mean? Versus like
to our internal QA.
Yeah, that's just nuts. And so it's like take those capabilities we've developed, and then also the design expertise, Like the reality is we're so much better at like just the systems integration stuff.
But also
then-
designing for all those things too, right? It's like designing so that you can translate it, so that you can get it working in various form factors and input systems, right? All of those have taken the whole history of our studio for us to like develop the capability and skill and expertise in doing all of that stuff. But none of that is like the game, right?
It's not the
Like,
game. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we did, which is like we pushed further and further on the technical making of the thing, right? And
we
talked about this.
made our own freaking code editor in
Yeah.
VS Code. Our tech stack is kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're
actually.
very deep in like the craftsman approach to like making the things, right? But I think one of the pieces that we missed kind of in that, as we were always seeing the gap between our games and like, if you look at Supergiant, look at any other indies who's like have these huge explosive things pop out, you can always pick parts of it where you're like, man, their quality is just higher, like their quality is just way higher on X, Y, or Z. So we were chasing that for a very long time. And I think one of the things we overlooked though is just the marketability aspect of it. And the reality is like, you don't have a big game is not inherently marketable at all. Right.
Yeah, they fail all the time.
They fail all the time, and they fail more spectacularly than small ones do. And so a big part of the transition for us is saying, okay, we got the craft part down, at least to a degree that all of us are happy with, as far as when we put out something,
it's good.
It's good. It's really good. And like that now the art is not just like, the art's not just whatever I was able to do. It's thoughtfully
choice
made. Yeah. It's made to try to, do something. As far as the code and stuff, like it's all super manageable on the back end per se. Like the structure of these things is smarter. And so we can do deployments, we can do all that stuff, but it's like, okay, we still need to angle the higher level design of these things to marketability. And that becomes actually even more important with a small game because you have so much less of a window to market the thing. So let's say how many dudes takes, I don't know, 6 months. I don't know, something like that. Let's guess, if we guess we will launch it next spring, that is, 1/4 of the visible time that the Crashlands 2 store page was live.
Yeah. The store page was up for 2 years, basically.
Yeah. So in that time, on the case of Crashlands 2, you're getting 100 to 300 wish lists a day for 2 years, just like in perpetuity, right? And so we're not going to have that kind of a time luxury when it comes to how you're marketing a game, a small
and we
game.
won't have the cross promo because Crashlands 2's success is driven by Crashlands 1 and by cross promotions for wish lists and sales and everything else.
So then we're trying to force ourselves into a particular position where we have to get very good at what in our estimation is like the remaining thing, which is this like from a high level standpoint, the game is fully marketable, markets itself, and is easy to pitch and sell someone on. Right.
And we're doing it on a short enough time frame that we're giving ourselves the opportunity to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, how many dudes is we're trying to make something that has broader appeal. It's not just like sci-fi aliens or
vaguely
whatever.
That you gotta listen to a lot before you realize why it's cool.
Yeah, it's not connected to our existing IP. So like every game that we've made, we've pulled together under the same universe. How many dudes is just its own thing. Mm-hmm. This is actually the first time we've done that in terms of a game release, aside from the first game we ever made, right? Because there was nothing to pull from. So we're kind of in this weird new space where, like Sam said, we're forcing ourselves to try to think about the stuff that we are good at and the stuff that we're bad at, which is like we're good at making small games. We're good at making high quality games. We're good at making games fast, but we just haven't prioritized doing that. Mm-hmm. And we're not very good at marketing. We're not very good at launching games. So we need to orient ourselves to try to sync those things up and like get better at marketing, line everything up, be marketing continuously throughout dev, get this thing out the door. But yeah, like if you're trying to go toe to toe with a AAA studio, you're just going to get weight classes exist for a reason, Like we went up against Mario Maker, we got socked in the mouth.
I think it's the thing where it's like I guess what the indie space kind of aspired to a couple of years ago just looks very different than what it aspires to now. And what I mean by that is like previously it was sort of like scaled ambitions that were still AAA in scope. So if you think like Hollow Knight, whatever else, it's like it's a big game, right? It's still a big ass game. It's a giant Metroidvania. The art is top notch. It might not be in 3D, right? It may not be that like AAA various production qualities associated with it, but it is very ambitious in terms of the scale of like the game, right? It's a game.
It's huge.
Huge game. If you think about
it's the kind of game that like if Nintendo had put that game out, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, like in terms of like scale, quality. In the same way that Nintendo doesn't like, it's not about graphical fidelity and that kind of stuff, right? It's about overall quality of the whole game. It's a game. They're making games. They're not making simulations of life, right?
Yeah, and so I think that there's been a shift though in the last couple of years, largely since COVID, frankly, where I feel like the differences you've seen in the media space have largely been around like style, like like really punched up, funny style stuff, and also a lot of social games. So you started with Among Us, but now it's like Peak came out a couple weeks ago. It's like every week there's a new kind of funky and cool 4-player voice proximity chat game now. Someone, I think just last week, called like Yap Yap or something. So you cast spells, by talking. It looks hilarious. There's like every week there's a new one of those, and so it's not so much about like essentially scaling down the production quality, but still hitting like a AAA breadth, right? In terms of the game you're making, it's more so about offering some of those offering just a more unique proposition, basically, in the indie space, I think, these days. And so I think that's helped us also transition, because it was the case when we started with Crashlands 2. We were like, we want to go as far as we'll go as far as we can, as hard as we can on like big open world immersive storytelling, all the stuff, but still in 2D. And then now it's like, we just want to do something that feels like everybody would find very amusing for some amount of time and not really worry too much about matching ambition. You know what I mean?
Something like you could buy the game pretty cheap, have a super fun, hilarious 20 to 40 hours in it, easily get your money's worth, have a great time, recommend it to people, and and it's not like build your whole life around it, play it for 500 hours. We might actually, we're kind of going roguelike-y with it, so it might actually end up like that. But like my experience with roguelike, so like I played the game Magicraft a while back, which is a fantastic game, and it's just like you like mix and match spells together into different wands, and you like create custom spells and stuff. And I basically no-lifed that game for like 4 days. So I got like 30 hours into it, and then I was like, all right, I've got about as far as I want to go with this game. And it's absolutely great. Anybody who just enjoys things would enjoy this game. Super fun, super creative, and yeah, it doesn't need to be a Baldur's Gate 3. It doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't need to be an epic production, I guess. And so I think that's kind of where we're focusing for the next bit.
Which, and also I have to wonder how much of this kind of comes. I do think you're right, Sam, about like some kind of cultural shift is happening.
Yeah.
In terms of the way that people are thinking about the stuff that they consume, I have to wonder. Like we're kind of seeing this with, like, as we've been experimenting with YouTube Shorts and stuff, which is there's a lot of things that if you're making like a full production, full video, full size, maybe like a 20-minute documentary to break down some thing about the world or whatever, then you're just obsessing over the script. You're recutting the thing constantly, re-recording stuff, going out and getting your footage. You're just doing tons and tons of work. And then like YouTube Shorts and TikTok and stuff appear, where you'll like the video that goes viral is just somebody just sitting there holding one of those tiny fucking microphones, just talking about what's going on in their life or something like that. Usually it's a rant or something a little bit, evocative, but, or like where somebody will be responding to something and they'll kind of like, they'll crop their head out and it'll be like really shitty looking and kind of like fuzzed around the edges, and they'll just throw themselves into the corner of the video with their little tiny microphone and they'll be commenting on stuff, and it doesn't look good. There's no real energy put into making it look good. It's just all about kind of like getting the point across, like what's the substance of the thing.
But the reason that works, though, I think what we've seen is a change in how people find things, right? Because we talk about it a lot with marketing a game is that the challenge is that a person can't understand what a game is until they play it, right? So we know with all the games that we've made that once people get in there, you can see from all of our review scores, they love the games that we make.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter if they would love it if they don't make it all the way through, right? All the way through the funnel. And the problem with games as a medium is that since they are experienced for you to know what it's like, you have to actually get it, install it, play it, right? Then everything that brings people to that point is a rough, bad model simulation of what it's actually like. It's like the best of our ability to get the idea across of what it will feel like to play this game, right, as you move through. With something like YouTube Shorts, that's true with like also YouTube and stuff, right? But with something like YouTube Shorts, you're put into the experience instantly. You're put into the experience of watching whatever the video is. You're not making a choice of, do I want to watch this video? Right? Do I
make
care?
it after you've already started?
Yeah, you're already watching
different game.
Yeah, so all the things that normally come into play when you're trying to decide if I'm taking the next steps down a funnel, which include things like graphical fidelity. Do I like the art style of a thing? Am I already amused? Like all this kind of stuff. When you're looking at something like YouTube Shorts, none of that's there. It's just you get to experience the thing.
That's what I'm
instantly. Right?
That's what I'm wondering is culturally, does this over time change the way people think about stuff? So like if people get so much enjoyment out of TikTok and YouTube Shorts or whatever, out of things that are clearly unpolished, you know what I mean? Like they're just like really having a great time with something that just frankly just doesn't look good, you know, or was like kind of thrown together, but it's still fun to engage with. Does that prime people to be more willing to do something like pay $5 for Vampire Survivors? You know what I mean?
Well, I think there's the authenticity too, and I think we're also seeing like the counter push against AI, because AI makes things look really polished, but that's it. It's polished and empty, right? And it's much more fun to play something that has like a lot. You can tell a person made this. There's all this character and attention that's put into it, even if it looks a lot worse, right? And I think we're seeing that already. I think that's going to get. I think all these things are going to come into play at the same time.
People want the artisanal handcraft.
Yeah, they want a real human experience, and I think all these things are kind of happening at the same time. So the net effect is that an indie game can look like an indie game, right?
Yeah.
Non-derogatory, because for a long time too, we experienced this reading people talk about our stuff. Like there's a large subset of players who derogatorily refer to indie games, right? Because like just pixel art, it's all the same, right? And of course, anybody who actually looks at a thing is like, yeah, pixel art isn't pixel art. There's differences between them, right? But it was easy to write that stuff off because of what people are into, what the experiences they're expecting, right? And as things get consolidated into this like ever smaller number of massive companies making this enormously expensive AAA content, and all this AI slop push where it's just like endless empty but nice looking vessels coming out, right? I think we're going to be seeing this big counter push the other way. But that said, I think that market's going to grow, but also the availability of stuff in the market will also grow, right? Because that stuff is easier to make. It's easier to make than Crashlands 2 was, right? It takes less time. And so it's going to put us into this place where attention matters maybe even more than it used to, but it's at least more possible for you to control getting it. But it means you can't make a game that like the game is good and that's what its selling point is, right? It means that you have to go have it compete in the marketplace of like, quick, do you like this? Experiences,
needs a
right?
hook.
It needs a really good hook. I think that's the reality. Is I think today's market, if you're an indie, to me, looks like it requires that. But at the same time, it's set up for it. It's set up.
But it's always bespoke. Because like, what's the hook of Vampire Survivor? I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah. So like,
I don't know why that game did so well.
Yeah, it's weird because there's always these. There's like a survivorship bias problem and all these other things. Like, I know what the hook is for Schedule 1. You know, it's
Breaking Bad.
Goofy ass looking drug dealing simulator. Hilarious and it's edgy, so people like it. Vampire Survivors, I don't know, like Silk Song has a hook, which is it's the sequel to Hollow Knight. What's the hook for Hollow Knight? It's just it's a Metroidvania. It's really good, right? And like we talked about how things change over time, right? Because like back in in the mid 20 teens. In a lot of cases, it was enough to make a really good game, and that's the hook. But now, maybe not anymore. So it's always changing, and I don't know. This kind of makes me think of
it's
how
always changing and always random, right? There will never be rules where it's like follow these rules,
do this, and then this happens. Well, it reminds me of stuff like when people talk about stock trading or something, which is like the price of the stock is supposed to reflect current market sentiment based on publicly available information. So if you read an article about a company, and you're like, oh my God, that's going to make this company more valuable, I should go buy the stock. You're not going to gain anything from that because everybody already read that article also, and the current price of the stock reflects whatever that article says. So it's not like you're gonna buy the shares and then it's gonna go up because you read the article. You're already late to the party. You know what I mean? Like you're reacting to the stuff that's already out there. And so similar, if you see some game that did something and succeeded, and you're like, I'm gonna do exactly what they did, and it's gonna work for me too. You're not the only one doing that. And by the time you get that game out, and actually I think when we first got into the games industry, we were working on an endless runner at the previous company that we worked at, because of Temple Run. Temple Run was just taking over Google Play, taking over the App Store, and the endless runner that we were working on with that company, it was already in progress when we joined the company, and it took 10 more months for it to come out. And the whole time we were like, this should not be taking this long.
Yeah.
By the time we released it, you know what else? You know what came out before our game? Subway servers, which took the endless runner thing and refined it and surpassed Temple Run. And the game we worked on just got thrown into the pile with the other 500 endless runners that came out that same month. Because you can be a fast follower, but you can't be a slow follower.
That's true.
But so like some things work for some people, for some companies, and just because it worked at that point doesn't mean it's going to work for you, right? Yeah. So let's get to the next question, which comes from Zonkadang, who says, now that y'all are doing game jams again, is there a chance of streaming during? Seth has done this in the past, and it's great insight into how y'all work and think through problems.
I don't know if we would stream it, but we may do a basically recording using the same tech we use for a podcast, and then use it to generate shorts. So back to the point previously, which is that largely what we found is that if we're going to be putting effort into, frankly, anything that is visible with a video on it, it's usually worth it to figure out how to do it in a way that lets us capture it so that we can recut it for short stuff later.
Put it where people are going to see it.
Yeah, because the reality is, like, it's very cool for people to watch, right? Like Seth during a jam process, or like us during a brainstorming meeting or whatever else. But if that's the only context in which it lives in, the reality as far as how far that can reach for us to, maybe bring in new fans, get more people following the podcast or buying our games or whatever else. The reality is, like, it's just like it's like nobody. It's like 50 people, maybe over the course of like a really long couple of days jam streaming, you're like 300 people.
Yeah, which isn't to say
speaking, nobody will watch our streams, right?
That doesn't mean that the people watching our streams are nobody. We love you guys.
Well, it's true. There's a big difference there, which is like the fact of the matter is that what is worthwhile to do just on like an individual basis, because it is enjoyable to like stream your game, chat with people live. It's very, very fun. May not make any sense at all from like a business perspective.
Consequently, it's not good marketing. It doesn't do anything,
and the cost is high because you can't. These aren't passive things where it's like, I'll just like stream while I'm doing it, right? It's a high cost, high cognitive load thing that fundamentally changes what it is that you're doing. So if you're trying to program live on stream, you're not going to have the same outcome. It's going to go a lot slower, but also you're not going to have the same result as it would, because you can't just sit there and be like, oh, what the fuck, and like think about a thing for 20 minutes, right? Or like what I'm always doing as I'm coding stuff is being like, what is this? And I go down a rabbit hole, figure something out, and I go to my notepad and I start like sketching something out and being like, wait, hold on, stare at the ceiling for a while, like it's the stuff you need to do to get there. You just can't really do, right? That's why when you do see people who are streaming stuff, they're either doing it just for shits and gigs, just for fun, right? Or the streaming itself becomes the point. Those are kind of the two categories.
Yeah, it's really challenging to stream game dev and like be engaging with the chat and also solving
problems.
Yeah. So what I've kind of found in the past was like anytime I've streamed, I'm always biased toward doing things I already know how to do. Like I'm not like trying to push into new domains that would take a lot of false starts and blah blah blah, because it's like the stream is for the people watching, and if I'm showing people watching and talking like how to do stuff that they probably haven't done but I've done a bunch of times, and I can kind of help them figure out how all that works, then that's beneficial to them. But it's less beneficial to me because then I'm just kind of like retreading ground that
Basically,
I've already...
you're far more slowly doing a thing you could do like alone.
Yeah, I'm more slowly doing a thing that is probably kind of easy for me to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to, taking my time going into new problem domains and growing my skills. Yeah, so it changes the shape. And like for a jam, oftentimes a jam is us like doing stuff that we have a pretty good idea how to do because we have to do it under a time constraint. So jams do kind of work for that, but it does mean that we would still have to scope the game down a lot because we have to accommodate time for interacting with chat and whatever else. So it does completely change. It transforms what the end product is.
And if you know you're being observed, that changes what you're doing. It changes the space you explore. Because even if we just did like let's say we took the initial brainstorming part of the process of trying to figure out what we're going to do, and because in that process, like it's fun and compelling and interesting for us in it, but a lot of what's happening is this like iterating on ideas, a lot of redundancy, like that from the outside is going to seem. It's like, didn't you guys already talk about that? Like, it's going to be like that kind of stuff, working through every little detail and reinforcing an idea. And like, and there's a lot going on there that I don't think would make good content. I mean, it might, but it wouldn't always make good content. But in either case, if we were doing it live on a stream, the whole time we're like, oh shit, we got to make sure this is fun and entertaining. And so
we'd be checking in with chat and like seeing what they're saying about what we're saying,
which could be a fun way to actually.
What's the thing? It is fun. Like, it is fun to stream, but the weird thing about it is like it's the Hawthorne effect, of like insight. Like once you start observing people, you can't actually observe people's behavior and measure their behavior if they know what they've observed. Yeah. So as soon as we start streaming, the stream kind of becomes another character involved in.
And it could be an interesting experiment. I think the problem is that our audience is too small, right? Because it could be a good experiment, and it's a circular problem, right? But it could be a good experiment for a future game to be like, okay, we're gonna do the jam phase of this game to figure out what we want to make for our next thing, and we want to involve our players with that process because that it could end up being useful to get people's really early reactions and opinions, like as we're in the process of doing it. It could actually be a useful, fun thing to do, but not if it's like, oh yeah, our 10 most hardcore fans are watching, right? Fun. That'll be a fun experience to have, but not actually informative in the sense of, should we make this? Are we getting ideas that are good? Because there's too much, it's all too narrow and small of a pool.
This reminds me of back in 2011, I did a Ludum Dare solo jam. I made a game about a goat. And,
it's a good one.
And that was the first Ludum Dare I ever did. And Notch was in that one, the creator of Minecraft. He participated in that jam. And he streamed his game dev over Justin.tv, which
I forgot that was.
I don't know if that's still around or if that became Twitch or I don't know. Something. It's like Twitch before Twitch, So Minecraft wasn't nearly as insanely popular in 2000. Like it was still very popular.
Yeah, I think it was still one of the most popular games of all time at that time.
It was getting there at least, if it wasn't already. But like Notch joined this jam and then he's streaming and he had like 1,300 people, watching his stream. And he just made like a little like dungeon crawler game. It almost had like Pathways into Darkness vibes kind of a thing, or like old Doom, But yeah, like even at that point, with the creator of Minecraft, doing this, and he got 1,300 viewers, right? It's like game dev is kind of a weird thing to watch because it's mostly code. It's every now and then, like it'll compile and then something cool kind of pops up. I don't know, like maybe nowadays if Team Cherry streamed, or if I guess Notch, I don't know, is Notch even doing anything? I think he's just gone. So. I don't know. Yeah. But if you take one of these developers who's made something that a lot of people know about, yeah, they probably would get like 20 or 30,000 people watching.
Yeah, but
at least
it's
at
gonna
first.
But the problem is if you're just doing like streaming of development itself, right? Because like you're saying, it's programming, it's not that debugging, it's reading documentation, it's doing all this other kind of stuff, right? And the people who would like, if people are coming there because it's that person, the person who made their favorite game, whatever, right? And they're coming to it as a player, then that's not good content for them because they won't know what the fuck is happening for like all of it. And even if the person was explaining what's happening, that is in the weeds how the sausage is made stuff that is not of interest to the vast majority of people who play games. And so, because that's the other part of it too, is if you want to make content like that, then that means you kind of can't do it about that part. You can't really do it about game dev unless your audience is game devs. And even most game devs, like that's such a niche, and also the people who would be into it are kind of mostly spend their time making games, so they're not around to even watch. Like we see this too with, there's kind of a growing population of like web devs who do a lot of public streaming and stuff, right? But it's the same deal. It's like it's so niche.
It's web dev viewers.
And even for that, the only people who are like coming to watch that stuff are basically new web devs, right? People who are relatively new to the discipline. They're new programmers, they're new whatever. And so the content itself has to be really high level, right? It has to be kind of beginner stuff. And for game dev streams, same deal. So again, like you can't have streaming alongside game dev and have like a sizable outcome from that.
Yeah.
Unless the game dev part is a way for you to sell your stream, right? Which means that it's the service is going the other way around, where you're doing game dev in service of trying to create some kind of content tailored to a particular niche that you think will engage with what you're making. And that fundamentally changes the nature of what that would be.
Yeah, but I think Sam's probably got the right idea of like, it'd be interesting to just be recording it and clip together moments of it to like turn it into something that's still allows people to kind of peek behind the curtain and see what's going on.
It's like a highlight reel, right? Because the thing is, like, we are typically in video call, especially in the case of Jam, like almost the whole time, right? Yeah. And with some of this tech, I believe we could have our screens being pulled up too, right? So you'd be able to see it, on any given person's screen what's happening too while we're talking about stuff. So you could potentially do something like that.
Yeah, but still, with that, because the value of streaming there is that it's all happening in real time. It's kind of like it's not being stored necessarily, right?
Right.
Versus, although I guess you could like stream it to you. Can you stream to like a private YouTube?
But I guess my point is I wouldn't want to stream it because again the
yeah. But if you don't, now all of a sudden all these new considerations come into play. Like because an hour video is already like fucking 100 gigabytes or some insane thing, right? It's like it's already huge. And if you're going to be like, let's just stream like capture the day of what we're up to, then now, and this is the thing that's really interesting about like professional YouTubers and video producers and stuff, their hardware situation is really different, right? Because they're investing in like these huge storage solutions that are local so that they can hold on to just terabytes and terabytes of video.
Where you just use like the same service we use for podcasts, you use Riverside for it, right? You basically offload all that in some way to make sure you could record all of it.
Yeah.
And then
my bet is it would fall over with like an 8 hour
you could dump 40 hours of video in like 3 days.
But there are solutions for that, right? You just kind of break it up and like
make it someone else's problem.
But the point being though, there's like these new technical challenges come into play anytime you want to do anything like this. And the question is always like, is it worth figuring that out to get that outcome? And most of the time, the answer always has turned out to be, well, shit, that was fun, but it didn't actually accomplish anything we needed it to accomplish.
This comes right back to the ROI question we were talking about of like making games earlier, right? Which is like some things are just really expensive, and then once they are, you start to have to ask questions about, well, what's the point of that? Like, what are we expecting to get out of that? And you can also just frame it as like, well, in some cases, it's just something to do to give back.
Yeah.
Like
Or sometimes it's just for fun. But that's a very different thing than like a sustainable operation. Giving back endlessly does not sustain you effectively, right?
Yeah, you got to receive at some point.
Yeah. Get pour from empty cup.
Otherwise, you don't have anything to give back, and then you're done. Well, I think we probably got to end the episode there. So these episodes are a little bit abbreviated because we're recording them all the same day. So stop there because we got to get right into recording the next episode.
Let's go.
So we'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And of course, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, hit like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It'll help us grow the podcast, and we'd appreciate it. And also head on over to Google Play, Steam, and the App Store. Pick up copies of our games. Give us some reviews. That also goes a long way. We appreciate that as well. So thank you all for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.